Hey guys, welcome back to Trek on the Tube. Today we're talking about Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 5, Saints of Imperfection. As usual, first my thoughts, my opinions, and then, later on, the Easter eggs and references I could find. But before all that, please indulge me as I wanted to say a few words about the success of Star Trek Discovery. And yes, I do mean it when I say success. You see, even if this channel was created with the intent of explaining Star Trek to new fans, chances are if you're watching this video, this review, you're already a Trekkie, or you've at least invested some time in the franchise prior to Discovery. So you know about Star Trek, you know about the technology, you know about the timelines, the ideals and philosophies that are usually represented. You might also be used to a certain style of Star Trek, and Discovery can be frustrating on many levels because it differs from a lot of what we're used to. I'd even go as far as saying it contradicts many of the things that we as fans had come to accept as established facts. Now, some Trekkies are straight up mad about this, more so than others, and some don't seem to mind at all, but the mainstream audience, the people that don't know much more about Star Trek than what pop culture has fed them over the years, they don't care. They're just looking for an interesting show to watch, and although Season 1 did have its flaws, it delivered precisely that. It delivered a new show as interesting as, say, Stranger Things, iZombie, Lost in Space, or Daredevil. Now, you may not like all of those shows, and that's fine, but my point is they're all mainstream shows created for a general audience that use similar plot devices in their storytelling. Of course, they each bring to the screen a unique universe, and that's pretty much what's going to define whether you watch one show or the other. It ultimately comes down to taste, but none of these shows are created for a certain niche audience or a specific fan base. And I think it's fair to say that Star Trek Discovery is probably the first iteration of Star Trek to be just like those shows. And that's why it's so successful with the mainstream audiences. It wasn't made for Trekkies. It's not niche, it's not directed at a specific fan base. Now, I tried to keep that in mind while reviewing Season 1. I tried to review each episode for what it was, while of course still requiring a certain level of coherence to the universe in which the story was unfolding. But Discovery Season 1, being a show not made for me, and yet still taking place in a universe I loved, turned out to be a very complicated season to review. I will forever have harsh opinions about the first season, and I will stand by those opinions, but I'm an adult, and I'm mature enough to understand that regardless of what some of us may think, Discovery Season 1 was a huge success, and it's thanks to that success that we're getting the return of Picard, 2 new animated series, a Section 31 show, and the groundbreaking new format that is the short treks. But that was Season 1. Now we're in Season 2 and there's been some major course corrections, both in the visuals of the show and the general feel of it. It feels more like Star Trek, and that simply makes it easier for me to review. I can still do my best to bring you honest, as objective as possible reviews, sure, but now without the constant strain of trying to process how I should interpret the show. Very crudely put, because I do disagree with the not my Trek movement, Star Trek Discovery Season 2 is Star Trek. That just so happens to be enjoyed by the mainstream audiences as well. And all I need to think about when doing my reviews is whether an episode is good Star Trek or not. And I'm happy about that. Okay, now I guess we can talk about Saints of Imperfection. I'm sorry, I do tend to go on a bit, but I feel like it needed to be said. The good news is Discovery Season 2 continues to deliver, generally speaking, quality content. The bad news is, as usual, I do have a few issues, some concerning continuity within the greater Star Trek universe, and some regarding the perpetual plot conveniences Discovery seems to use so often, but just like I said last time, I'm now watching episodes of a show I enjoy, so most of the discrepancies and problems don't seem so bad. Surprisingly, I like this episode less the second time around. That usually doesn't happen with me. Second viewings are always an occasion to better understand the plot, focus on the little things, but this time, since I already knew about the network and the outcome, I found myself struggling through a few of the performances, and as I said earlier, plot conveniences. The USS Discovery executes a half jump with the spore drive and finds itself basically shipwrecked between normal space and the mycelial network, and that concept is amazing. Everything that has to do with that blew my mind. From the way the network exists and evolves, to the Tilly story, and of course the brilliant moment where everyone was tricked into thinking Koba would in fact not return. I loved it all. The visuals are amazing, the way the ship is getting eaten, it was just the right amount of creepy and fascinating. I loved how some of the science was explained, but a lot still remains a mystery. You really get the sense that even the characters in-universe don't exactly know what's going on. That was all great, for sure, but sadly, at times, as if to counterbalance all of this positive, I wasn't convinced by Mary Wiseman's performance. It felt kind of over the top. Amateur, almost. And the same goes for Michelle Yeoh's Emperor Georgiou. I've said this before, Yeoh is an amazing actor, and her Captain Georgiou was inspiring, but this evil villainy thing she's doing just... It doesn't suit her. The plot convenience I was referring to are, for example, how the characters never seem to know who is on a certain ship or shuttle when the writers want to build suspense. I mean, this time they couldn't tell if it was Joju, last time it was Amanda, I don't know, it's weird. And why were there no medical officers or science officers around the cocoon encompassing Tilly? This is a science ship with however many labs and arguably dozens of scientists on board. Why is Stamets the only guy worried about the situation? Continuing with Stamets, why does he do his briefing on the bridge? They have a friggin' briefing room now with a big table and everything, just do it there. I suppose from a production standpoint it probably looked cooler to do it on the view screen, but yeah, whatever. I do agree that these issues overall are small. They're not gaping plot holes or responsible for long periods of disinterest. The episode kept me engaged from beginning to end. It's just that you get this feeling of, it was good, but not quite polished. Okay, but if I'm being honest, that's a fair enough statement to be said about most Star Trek episodes ever, so I guess it's fine. Okay, that's about it for my review, although I did want to end with two special mentions, the first being the music. I don't know why, but the music stood out to me more than usual here. I love the little theme the Emperor got as she came out of the shuttle. I don't know, it was great. And the second thing is the montage at the end of the episode. I'm not a huge fan of Burnham's monologues, nor slow motion usually, but I don't know, I did like to see the bridge from, I suppose, what could be called her perspective. You see the bridge officers working together, you know, side by side, having a laugh. It was a lighter moment, and I enjoyed that. Alright. Let's move on to the Easter eggs and references part of the video, and I think we'll start this off with the most controversial and biggest Easter egg of the episode, if it can even be called an Easter egg, Section 31. For those that don't know, Section 31 was first introduced in Deep Space Nine as being a completely secret organization working in its own way for the interests of the Federation and its citizens. To be very clear, in Deep Space Nine, it's a secret, and only the people either involved with the section or that are approached by it know about its existence. Later, Enterprise brought back the section, essentially explaining that it already existed before the Federation was created, and in Enterprise also, it's a very secretive organization that barely anyone knows about. The controversy lies with Discovery, because it would seem that we now have a very different approach to Section 31, where pretty much everyone knows about the organization because it's not a secret. It's just another division that deals with covert operations, etc. I understand the frustration of certain fans because as it stands, it doesn't make much sense. But I've already read a few and also come up with my own interesting theories about how everything could tie back in together, so I say just roll with it for the moment and let's see where the story goes. To finish off the Section 31 segment, let's talk about the two for sure Easter eggs, the first being Tyler's badge that also works as a communicator. As we know, communicators were integrated into the badges eventually, just like the Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager showed us, but it's interesting to now know that the tech originated from Section 31. The second Easter egg is the mention of Article 14, which is a reference to Article 14, Section 31 of the Starfleet Charter, the article at the origin of the section's creation. Leland apparently spent some time with alligators on Cestus 3. That planet is the one on which we see the original series crew under attack by the Gorn. It's fun to think that the word alligator might be a way of calling the Gorn, but if I'm not mistaken, actual first contact was made in the original series episode, so for now we'll just say that Leland did in fact spend some time with alligators on Cestus 3. He also got into a scrape on Deneva, a planet we also see in the original series when it gets overrun by these things. Lieutenant Nan is wearing an original series styled uniform, a variant on the Discovery uniforms. The Red Angels are leaving tachyons behind. As mentioned in this episode, they might have something to do with time travel. In Star Trek, they usually do. Tachyons are one of those recurring time travel related technobabble words. I know these aren't exactly references or Easter eggs, but the Jasep, the species native to the mycelial network, have a way of eating at the ship's hull, and that's very similar to what's happening to the ships in the Next Generation episode, A Matter of Honor. Also, the whole idea of another species living in some sort of spatial dimension, next to ours, resembles species 8472 from Voyager. And that's it. Oh, actually, there's also a reversed image here in which we see Tilly's badge is the wrong way around. A pretty obvious mistake, but a fun one. There you go. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed the episode and my video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and as usual, live long and prosper.